Hello and welcome, class. Today we are going to learn how to do 3 basic manipulations in our friend Adobe Photoshop. So let's go ahead and get started. But before we start, what we need to do is we need to make a duplicate of our subject. Here I have my layers palette out. If you do not know where to get the layers palette, everything is right here in your Windows pull-down menu. So here's our layer right here. So that pops up. You can also use the history. The history is a very good tool. You can always go back where you originally started from or move forward where you are at. We'll use the history, and this is a paths tool. We won't necessarily use the paths tool in this lesson, just the layers and the history tool. Now what you'll notice is that it says background here on our palette, our layers palette. This is very basically is the background. So what we're going to do is we are going to, there's a little lock here, you need to double click on it. Once you double click on it, out will pop this new layer dialog box. We are going to call this original. And we'll say OK. And now what it does is it releases the lock, which is very important. Now we are going to also take this original and we are going to make a duplicate. So we'll go right up to this little tiny pointer and we will select it and we are going to duplicate a layer. So we are going to call this our retouch and we'll say OK. Now you can see our retouching image and our original image. What we are going to do right now is we are going to, with the eyeball, we are going to turn off our original. And we are going to work on the retouch part. So the first thing that we are going to learn how to do today is create a basic crop. So I'm going to be using my cropping tool. If you hover over the tool in the Adobe Photoshop toolbox, it will say crop tool. So I'm going to take the crop tool and I'm going to very basically create a marquee around my subject, and here's a traditional crop. Now what you'll notice is that Adobe Photoshop gives you 2 vertical lines and 2 horizontal lines on the subject. This is very basically known as the rules of third. And this is a very symmetrical type of cropping technique. But what we're going to do is we're going to use an asymmetrical or a rule of third cropping technique. And what we're going to do is we're just going to move our window over here. We are going to line up our subject with this line, either this line or this line here. Okay, but I really like it over here because you get the whole subject. Now what this does is it kind of creates a dynamic look. Nothing's actually centered, but it's off-center. This is known as the rule of thirds. And what the rule of thirds does is it kind of creates a little bit more of a dynamic look to your photography. Okay, so I like what I've got here. I got rid of this area, this cement. I'm cropping right up to the shoe. I'm going to pull this down a little bit here, and so that we have kind of a proportion here, nice look to it. And once we have our desired cropping look, then what we'll do is we'll double click and it sets our photograph to that crop. Okay, very good, very nice cropping. Okay, so the next thing we are going to now learn is how to do some basic color enhancement. And right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, we're working on Macintosh. You can work on PC. Adobe Photoshop works well on either platform, but most of digital photography as well as graphic design and digital imaging, they tend to gravitate towards Macintosh. Probably very basically because we have a lot of really unique techniques within the Macintosh operating system. One of the nice things are shortcuts. So I'm going to do a Command plus, and what the Command plus does, it helps us focus on a particular area. So for color enhancement, we are going to go ahead and use our levels, and you will find your levels up here in the image, mode, adjustments, and you will find our levels. Okay, but if you have worked with Adobe Photoshop before, you know it as a Command L, and when I do a Command L, out pops this levels dialog box. And let me tell you a little bit about what we're seeing here. This little white button here is known as our highlights. The medium one here, or the middle one here, is known as our midtones, and the little black one over here is known as our shadows. Now, on this level curve, you will notice that there are, in the highlight area, there's a lag spot here, and in the shadow, there's also a lag spot. Traditionally, what we'll do is we'll take our highlight and run it up to the beginning of the peak, and you can see that it's kind of lightened some areas up. And then I'm going to take my shadow button and I'm going to move it down to the peak. And now what that has done is it's created some vibrance. It's cleaned up some of the areas, the white areas, as well as it has enhanced a very contrasty look, and that's what we're trying to go for right now. So in color enhancement, we can go ahead and use the levels tool. It just really helps out to create a little bit more color and dynamics to your photograph. Okay, so now we're going to say okay. And let's go ahead and see what that looks like. We're going to turn off our retouch, and we're going to turn on our original. And you can see that we have definitely dropped out the background here quite a bit, as you can see. So we've brought some highlight up to it. We turn it off. You can see the dullness of the photograph. So we'll go ahead and go back to our retouching. Make sure that we stay on our layer, because that's important. If you're not on the layer that you want to manipulate, you can't move it, you can't adjust it unless you are on the actual layer. So it's very important that you identify and name everything so you don't get confused. All right. Very good. So now the next thing we're going to work on is I'm going to do some photo retouching, and I'm going to, this is such a dynamic look, but I do not want these tattoos, so I'm going to get rid of them. So the first thing I'm going to use is my cloning tool. Here's my cloning tool. It looks like a little rubber stamp. You can see the size of that little circle. This circle works in conjunction to brushes, and let me bring out the brushes to show you. If you adjust the size of the brush here, you'll see a larger brush. You adjust it downward, you see a smaller brush. We are also going to use one of these brushes that looks like a little airbrush or a spray paint can splash. So I'm going to click on one of these, and that will give me a softened look. The hard-edged will give you a hard look, and I want to have a little bit of a fudge factor, so I'm going to use this tool here. So let's go ahead and see. Let's go over to the arms here. I think that this size will work for me. Maybe I'll just go ahead and enlarge it up a little bit, and let's go ahead and focus on creating the touching up. Okay, here we are. We are at about 282%. I'm starting to see it digitized, but we're going to work at this enlargement, and then we'll reduce down to see how well we've done. So what we want to do is we want to get an average area here to replace this area to this area. So we'll select this, and what you'll do is you'll use the Option tool, and you will click out the mouse at the same time, and we are going to clone this area over to this area. So let's go ahead and click. And now it has read that area, and we can just very basically go here and start to retouch. And as you move, you will see a little X that's telling you what area it's cloning. And we can move over here, do the same thing. Good as new. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to get a smaller brush, and we will touch up the outer area. So I'm going to select this area, and then I'm just going to work on in touching this area up. Got to be very careful because your photo retouching will splash over to the other area. So it's really important that you be very careful. It's like you're an artist. Now I can see that I've left some splotches there. I'm going to go back over to my brushes and get a little bit bigger area, maybe like this, to kind of just soften the area. Okay, looks a lot better. Let me select this area. Much better. Now I'm being very critical, but when we reduce down, you will notice that you will not see those particular areas. So I'm going to go ahead and reduce down again, and I'm going to touch up this side. Looks pretty good. And I'll go back over to this area here, and I'll touch over here a little bit more. And there we go. A little bit more over here. Okay, let's go ahead and reduce down and see what it looks like. Okay, I can see just a little tiny bit of distortion here. I can always go ahead and touch it up a little bit later on. That actually doesn't look half bad. Move this out of the way for just a second. All right. Now let's go ahead and focus in on this area, and let's go ahead and enlarge. Let's go ahead and reduce down just a little bit. There we go. So we can get our subject in view here. Okay, so once again, we're going to go ahead and get a little bit larger brush here. Right about there. I'll select this area, and then I'll move down, and I'll move up. In a way, you're like an artist. So you have to be really, really conscientious of your work. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to go down to a smaller brush to do the final touches. And over here. Okay, looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and reduce down. Let's look at our subject now. All right, looks pretty good. I can still see a little bit of blotchiness. I can go back and touch that up a little later. Sometimes you want to reduce the image down to see if you actually see where you need some more retouching. And this definitely needs more retouching, so I'm going to go ahead and enlarge my size of brush up, and let me just see if I can just kind of work that through. Okay, that looks a little bit better. Let me just do another quick little. Okay, very nice, very nice. It looks like a little bit of a highlight on her arm, and let me just go ahead and see if I can touch this one up a little bit. Yeah, that looks much better, and might go ahead and just touch this up a little bit more. Okay, let's go ahead and reduce down and see what we got. Okay, this looks excellent on this side. This could possibly need some more work, but you get very basically the gist of how to retouch. If I don't retouch this part and get it just right, it'll drive me crazy. So that's much better. Okay, looks very good. So Frenchie here, my daughter, if I have not mentioned this to you earlier, this is my daughter. She's very photogenic, and we do a lot of photo shoots with her. Okay, everything looks really good. If you have any questions, you can always ask me in detail in class. The cropping process looks really good. I like what I've done. The color enhancement looks really good, and so does the photo retouching. In regards to using the cloning tool when you photo retouch, it does take a little bit of time, a little bit of experience, but if you photo retouch most of your photos or do just get into the practice of using the photo retouching tools, you get better and better and better. So my philosophy is practice makes permanent, and that's what you need to do with these programs. Okay, let's go ahead now. Let's get our layers and let's bring them over here, and let's go ahead and turn off our retouch. You can see what we've done, and we've done an awful lot. Okay, very good. Alrighty, so this is our lesson for today. I hope you learned some things, and I hope you enjoyed the demonstration. And when we get back into class, this will be an actual project that you're going to be working on. You're going to be doing proper cropping, color enhancement, and photo retouching. Okay, class, bye for now, and I will see you in class.